Imagine a puzzle with missing pieces, a story with no end, and mysteries that have baffled the world for decades. Today, we delve into the most mysterious unsolved crimes that continue to haunt us till this day. Here are our top 5 most mysterious unsolved crimes. These unsolved crimes will blow your mind. Number 5. Jessica Chambers. Even after 9 years since the tragic demise of a young woman, her family continues to hope for justice. Jessica Chambers, hailing from Cortland, Mississippi, was only 19 when her life was abruptly taken. Losing a loved one is always heartbreaking, but the harrowing details of Jessica's final hours added immeasurable pain for her friends and family. In her past, Jessica had struggled with drug addiction and began associating with gang members when she was around 17. During this time, she also started dating a man nearly a decade her senior from the same gang. The same year, a car accident claimed her brother's life, pushing her further into a spiral of self-destructive behavior. At the time of her disappearance, however, her loved ones believed that she had overcome her addiction, while her boyfriend was in prison. At 19, Jessica, once a cheerleader and a social butterfly, was on the path to recovery. She had a steady job and was working towards a brighter future. Despite her family's reservations, she maintained connections with her friends from her past and remained loyal to her incarcerated boyfriend. Jessica's associations often led her to cross paths with dubious individuals. After her death, investigators began piecing together her movements on the day leading up to her disappearance and demise. Jessica's mother stated that on December 6, 2014, Jessica had woken up early to meet her friends and returned home later, appearing stressed and tired. She took a nap but left again after 5 p.m. after receiving a call without sharing her plans. CCTV footage showed Jessica at a gas station, seemingly alone, though the camera angle made it challenging to confirm if anyone was in the car. GPS data from Jessica's phone indicated that she returned to Cortland around 6 p.m. and called her mom, stating that she'd be home soon, albeit sounding disinterested. Tragically, Jessica never returned home. At around 8 p.m., police were alerted to a car accident, finding the vehicle ablaze and Jessica severely burnt but alive beside it. Her last uttered words sounded like Eric or Derek, were hard to discern due to her injuries. Though this was initially seen as vital evidence in whatever had taken place that night, nothing ever came of it. Chambers passed away after arriving at the hospital. Autopsy reports and crime scene evidence showed that the victim had been attacked and gasoline had been her throat and sprayed all over the car before it was set ablaze. Investigators eventually found, through her cell phone, that the victim had most recently been in contact with a drug dealer named Quentin Tellis. In fact, GPS data showed that they had been at the same location for a long period of time the night Chambers died. This man was brought in as a suspect and was charged with causing the woman's death during 2 different trials. However, a lack of evidence and destroyed cell phone data caused both attempts to be ruled as mistrials. Quentin was freed from the spotlight as a suspect, but Chambers' family still believes he was responsible for the attack against their loved one and still hold out hope that justice may one day be served. Number 4. The Vanishing of Relisha Rudd. Relisha Rudd was just 8 years old when she was last seen in March 2014. For more than a year before her disappearance, Relisha, her mother, and her 3 younger brothers had been living in a homeless shelter in Washington, D.C., alongside hundreds of other families. 51-year-old Khalil Tatum worked at the shelter as a janitor. He had formal felony convictions for breaking and entering, burglary, and larceny. Tatum had grown close to Relisha and her family over the course of their stay. Despite a policy that prohibited fraternization between the shelter's staff and its residents, Relisha and Tatum spent time alone together, and Tatum gave her gifts, including a tablet. Relisha even referred to him as her goddaddy. Tatum spent time with other young girls staying at the shelter as well, but was never disciplined for this behavior. Toward the end of February 2014, Relisha's mother, Shamika Young, placed her into Tatum's care, allowing her daughter to leave the shelter and stay with him. Young was reportedly unhappy with the conditions at the shelter and may have been trying to give Relisha a better life. But once Tatum took over caring for the 8-year-old, she began to miss school at an alarming rate. When school officials spoke to Young about the absences, she told them Relisha was being cared for by the man they called Dr. Tatum, and they called Tatum, he said he was treating Relisha for neurological issues. By March 19th, Relisha had been absent from school over 30 times. When Child Services arranged to meet with Tatum, he never showed. It was at this time that social workers learned that Tatum wasn't a doctor at all and contacted the police. Young told investigators that Tatum and her daughter were attending a medical conference in Atlanta and that she'd spoken to Relisha on the phone March 17th. Young was convinced her daughter was safe and declined to file a police report, even though Tatum could not be reached on his cell phone, and the D.C. apartment he'd shared with his wife was empty. A missing persons investigation was launched. Security footage of Tatum and Relisha was discovered at the Holiday Inn Express in Northeast D.C. The two could be seen walking down a hallway at a hotel on February 26. Both Tatum and Relisha look at ease in this footage. They're each carrying a shopping bag and walking at a leisurely pace, and nothing seems out of the ordinary. A passerby would likely assume that they were father and daughter. Footage from March 1st showed the pair in a similar situation, walking to a hotel room at the Days Inn. This video is the last confirmed sighting of Relisha. When Tatum's wife, Andrea, was found shot to death in a Maryland hotel room, investigators ramped up their search for both he and Relisha. They learned that at the beginning of March, he had purchased large trash bags, a shovel, and quicklime. On March 31st, Tatum's body was discovered at Killingworth Park in Aquatics Gardens. He had shot himself with the same gun that killed Andrea. There is no trace of Relisha. Child Services was criticized for waiting so long to take action regarding Relisha's absence from school. The agency had been involved with her family before, finding that the home environment Young created was unsafe and that she had medically neglected at least one of her children. But it wasn't until Relisha had vanished that Young lost custody of her kids. She was also investigated for obstruction of justice due to the statements she made about where Relisha was, but was never charged. She rarely speaks to the media about Relisha's disappearance. In a statement to the Washington Post 2014, Young said, quote, "It's not my fault. I'm tired of laying my head down to get some rest and I can't even reach out and grab my daughter. Relisha has never been seen or heard from again. Authorities believe she was likely killed by Tatum. His purchases in early March indicate that he may have planned to get rid of human remains. In 2020, police searched a series of tunnels underneath the shelter, which Tatum would have had knowledge of as a janitor there. Nothing was found, and the young girl's fate is still unknown. Relisha Rudd would now be about 15 years old. Number 3. Artemus Ogletree. Artemus Ogletree, also known as the Room 1046 mystery. The killing of Artemus Ogletree has baffled investigators and internet sleuths alike. It occurred January 5th, 1935. For a couple of days prior, Ogletree, going by the name of Ronald T. Owen, was behaving strangely. He often sat in the dark, seemed agitated, and was corresponding with a man named Don. At 10:30 a.m. on the morning of January 5th, Ogletree was found bound and bloodied in his hotel room and later died at the hospital. Following his death, Ogletree's mother received letters from someone pretending to be his son. His assailant may have been a man named Joseph Martin, who went by the alias Donald Kelso, but this has never been confirmed. Seewen Murder Mysteries. It was Pentecost weekend of 1976, but in a little house in Sweden, Switzerland, 5 people were brutally shot to death. Using a Winchester rifle, 13 rounds were fired off. 11 of those shots were used to kill the victims in the head. The last 2 were fired into their bodies. The victims killed were the 62-year-old Elsa Sigrid Sackinger, her 63-year-old husband Eugene's sister Anna, who was 80, and her 2 sons, 52-year-old Emmanuel and Max Westhauser, who was 49. It's believed the killer had only intended to kill both Elsa and Eugene, but was shocked to find other people there, so he decided to kill them as well. The crime was discovered on June 6, 1976 by a female passerby. Police arrived to find 4 of the corpses inside the house. The 5th one was found wrapped in a carpet and placed on the terrace. The Criminal Investigation Division diligently looked for Winchester rifle owners by following several leads. However, there was little chance of catching the offender until the fall of 1996, when a Winchester rifle was discovered concealed in the kitchen walls of a residence owned by a woman by the name of Dosser. The Carl Dosser gun had a short barrel that was an imitation Italian Winchester. It was recognized as the instrument of death for the victims. Dosser was revealed to be a recluse who lived in Basel. The firearm had been legitimately purchased from Hoffman and Reinhardt Waffle AG in 1973. When the police had previously interrogated Dosser, Dosser had told him a falsehood, saying that the rifle was sold at a flea market. Despite the lack of a documented meeting between the Dosser and victims, a clear motivation for the victim's death could not be established, hence Dosser was not prosecuted. The majority of Swiss people continue to think Dosser was the murderer nonetheless. And then there was Adolf Johnny Siegrist, a relative of the victims. Business acquaintance of Adolf, Hans Blasser, said that Adolf had something to do with the murder because 3 weeks before the incident, Blasser said Adolf had asked him for ammunition. He said he needed extra heavy lead bullets and asked if it would fit his Italian Winchester rifle. He also said he was getting it as a gift for someone else. When police searched his apartment, there were styrofoam heads that had been shot through in his flat. Adolf was also described as being a man who was insecure about his height and his voice because he sounded like a woman. It's believed that he may have worked with Dosser to get revenge on Eugene for belittling him. Although he was arrested temporarily, he was let go and died during the mid-1980s. The Seewen murders continue to remain a mystery, although there are strong suspects on both Dosser and Adolf. No direct evidence has linked them to the crime. What really happened that night? Number 1. The bizarre case of Tamla, Horsford. Before we delve into our number 1, please hit that subscribe button on your screen if you found today's topic interesting and would love to watch more of this. This will only take a microsecond of your time. Thank you for your support. Now let's dive into this case. On the evening of November 3rd, 2018, 40-year-old mother of 5, Tamla Horsford, attended an adult slumber party with other local mothers in Cumming, Georgia. By the following morning, Tamla was found dead and nobody was able to explain why. On the morning of November 4th, Tamla's body was discovered in the backyard of Jean Meyer's home. Myers had invited a group of mothers who met through their youth football league over to celebrate her birthday, offering to let them spend the night to avoid drinking and driving. Though the party was planned for a group of 9 women, 2 men also stayed at the house that night. Myers' boyfriend, Jose Barrera, and Tom Smith, the husband of another attendee. Barrera and Smith hung out in the finished basement while the mothers socialized upstairs. Tamla drank tequila and went out to the back porch to smoke throughout the night, mostly cigarettes, but also marijuana, until Meyer asked her to stop. At some point, the men came back upstairs and the group played Cards Against Humanity. At around 11:30 p.m., some guests began to head home, while those who planned to stay the night got ready for bed. The last person to see Tamla alive was Bridget Fuller, who left the house at 1:47 a.m. when her husband picked her up. She told police that she and Tamla were the only 2 people left downstairs and that Tamla was eating gumbo shrimp and planned to smoke another cigarette before going to bed. The home security system registered the back door opening, closing, and opening for a final time at 1:57 a.m. At 8:45 a.m. the next morning, Tamla was seen on the lawn, 14 feet below the porch, face down and unresponsive, by Myers' aunt who lived at the house. Jean Myers and Jose Barrera called 911 at 8:49 a.m. The homeowner Myers could be heard guessing that Tamla fell off the balcony, which had a nearly 4-foot-tall railing. Barrera told the 911 operator that Tamla wasn't breathing and described a small cut on her wrist, suggesting that she may have tried to hurt herself. Barrera mentioned on the call that the house had security cameras that were pointed at the backyard, but they were later found to have dead batteries. The Forsyth County Sheriff's Office reported multiple blunt force injuries in Tamla's autopsy. Noting a high blood alcohol level in her system, investigators agreed that she had probably accidentally fallen off the balcony to her death. The other partygoers reported going to bed before Tamla. Tamla's friends and family were suspicious of the story. Whatever had happened to her, it seemed she had been alone. The family asked for an independent autopsy from the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. This autopsy found that Tamla had suffered more severe injuries than might be expected from an accidental fall. In addition to blunt force trauma to the head, neck, and torso, she had also had cuts on her face, hands, and legs, and a laceration to her heart's right ventricle. Her right wrist was dislocated, her neck was broken, and there are 4 types of hemorrhages in her skull and brain. A blood alcohol level of 0.238 was found in the GBI's toxicology report, in addition to traces of an anxiety drug and THC. 2 months after Tamla's death, Barrera, the man who reported it to 911, was fired from his job as a Forsyth County court officer. For unknown reasons, he had tried multiple times to illegally access the official incident report. Despite the unusual circumstances, Tamla's death was ruled as an accident, and the case was closed February 20th, 2019. The Horsford family hired attorney Ralph Fernandez to continue looking into Tamla's death. On June 5th, 2020, Fernandez informed Tamla's husband, Leander, that his team's findings suggested the incident had not been an accident, but a homicide. Tamla's injuries indicated that she could have been involved in a struggle, and that the investigation had left much to be desired. This scene had been poorly preserved. Autopsy photos were never released to Fernandez and were possibly not taken at all, and witness statements that conflicted with one another had not been followed up on. A week later, Forsyth County Sheriff Ron Freeman asked the GBI to reopen the case. The agency agreed, but did not provide a timeline for their investigation. Over 5 years later, it's still unclear whether Tamla Horsford died as a result of a terrible accident or something more sinister. What do you think might have happened to her? Have you enjoyed this video? Do remember to subscribe to our channel. We have new videos coming out every week that you know you want to check out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.